Parshat Vayigash. Finally, Yosef reveals himself to the brothers. Joseph says to the brothers those famous words, Ani Yosef ha'od avi chai, I am Joseph, is my father still alive? He also reassures them, and they are stunned into silence, they're shocked, they cannot believe what's just happened to them. And he reassures them and says, look, don't worry, God has ensured that this happened, it was predestined, it was meant to be. And then he says to them, you must go to my father and say to him the following things. And he gives them a list of things to say and to take with. And let's look at those for a moment. The first thing he says, after having told them, look, I've been placed as a ruler over Egypt, they know this, they can see that. He says to them, the first instruction he gives them to tell their father is, Somani Elokim la'adon lechom Mitzrayim, God has placed me as a master over Egypt. How's that going to reassure Yaakov and make Yaakov feel better? Jacob is not the type of person who's going to be wowed by the fact that Joseph is the viceroy of Egypt. He just wants to know that he's well, he's alive, and what he's saying to the brothers is this. Not only Somani Elokim la'adon lechom Mitzrayim, God has placed me as a master over Egypt, but Somani Elokim, I have placed God, can also be read as I have placed God as a master over Egypt. By my actions, by everything that I do, by my example, I have shown what it means to be a God-fearing person and how that is a benefit, and that's the way we should live. Certainly in Egypt, in the immoral society that it was, that is something to be proud of. And that was going to reassure Yaakov that everything was well, that I have stood steadfast in my commitment to the values and the teachings of God and the God that we follow. And that is the first thing he says to them. The first thing you must tell our father is that I am setting an example of being a God-fearing person. He then says, you should tell our father that you should come down to Egypt where I will provide for you. And he says something a little strange. You would have thought that he's going to make space for him in the palace or right close to where they live. But he says, V'yoshavta be'eretz Goshen, you will dwell in the land of Goshen. V'yisakar elai, you'll be close to me, you and your sons, you'll be close to me. Why not next to me? Well, this can be illustrated by a very famous story with a great rabbi who did not want his father to live in the same town as him. And the reason he said so was because he was concerned about kibudov, of honoring his father. He said, look, I have a responsibility to honor my father. Stand up for him when he walks into the room, to show respect for him, the way we speak to our parents, right? He will have a responsibility to honor and respect me as rabbi of the town, as the Rav. I don't want to put my father in that position where he has to stand up when I walk into the room, and that I might not be sensitive to the honor and respect I have to give him. It's a challenge. And therefore he says it's best that we don't live in the same town. And this is part of the explanation given as to why they were to dwell in Goshen. The land itself was a wonderful land. It was going to have plenty grass and graze for the animals. But ultimately, he also had this feeling, look, if he lives right next to me, I'm the ruler, he's going to have to show me respect. He thought it was inappropriate for his father to be standing up when he walks into the room, or anything that he would have to do to show respect for him as a ruler in Egypt. And therefore he said, look, dwell in Goshen, you'll be next to me, close to me, we'll be able to visit each other when we need to, but you won't be put into this difficult position, or I won't be putting you in a difficult position where you need to constantly show me respect, and I might not be giving you the appropriate and proper respect because of my position. Very sensitive to his father's needs. And then he says to the brothers, you should tell my father, Eskol kavoidi b'Mitzrayim, all my honor in Egypt. Again, is this really what Yaakov would have been proud of? All the honor he's got as a viceroy? Yaakov wasn't your average father. That's not the sort of nachas that Jacob would have wanted. But what he is saying to the brothers, he's hinting at the fact, as kol kavoidi, all my honor, can also be read from the word koved, all my difficulties. You should tell my father all the difficulties that I have encountered in my time in Egypt. Yet, notwithstanding all those trials and tribulations and difficulties, especially when it comes to immorality, I've managed to remain steadfast and true to the morals and principles that you brought me up with. And that is going to reassure Yaakov, that is going to gladden Yaakov's heart, knowing that in spite of all those challenges, Yaakov is going to be the one who is happy because Yosef has managed to stay steadfast. And that's what is the message that he was wanting to give his father. Don't worry, I'm still God-fearing, I've still stayed true to all those teachings and values that you brought me up with. Not only did he give them instructions to say to the father, but also he gave lots of gifts, food. And it says, Eser asonos, he sent 10 donkeys, asses, noisim mituv mitzrayim, that were carrying from all the best, the good that was Egypt. Now the Torah doesn't tell us what this is, but Rashi quotes from the Talmud by saying that what he sent him was aged wine, because old people, according to Rashi and the Talmud, old people enjoy aged wine much more. And the message that he was sending was part of the whole subtle message and messages that Yosef was sending his father to say, look, there is a very important principle when it comes to vintage wine. Good vintage wine will only become good the longer it lasts if it started off good when it was first produced. If wine was good when it was young, it will become even better when it was old. If it was no good to start off with, it will just become sour, it will turn into vinegar. Not every wine, just the longer it remains, the better it gets. Only if it starts off good will it continue to age and mature and become a vintage, good tasting wine. And this is the message he was sending to his father. Look, I was good when I was young. You taught me well, I've got good values and a good nature. And therefore, as I got older, I became even better. Maturity, I've spoken about this before. Age and maturity and experience is all well and good. But it only is an advantage if we made the most of our lives when we were younger. If not, then simply by being older is no great advantage over the younger people. And this is what we need to do, and the lesson we need to take from Yosef, that we need to make sure that we are constantly being good so that we can age and mature and become experienced, not simply by numbers, by an age, by a year that's on our numbers, but rather by being the people that we can develop into and grow and learn life's experiences and life lessons to be better people like when we are old, like good vintage wine.